And we are back with another Black Belts and Boardrooms episode. It has been a great week. We are just about to hit to another month in November. The year's about to end. We had to have another great guest on just so we could finish this year off right. Amir, who do we have today?
I'm excited today because we have John Doonan, the president of International Motorsports Association, IMSA, here with us today as a guest. Now, I personally am an auto racing fan. Now, maybe John will take offense, and I hope not. Formula One
That's
is my jam.
that's
So,
okay, that's okay,
but
that's
I do love the
okay.
endurance racing, which is very much in your wheelhouse. So I am beyond thrilled to be true, to be truthful on that. And I hope the audience is going to really enjoy this conversation. So, John, let's just jump right into it, sir. As again, an auto racing fan, obviously, I've got tons of questions for you, but I do know that all of this passion always comes back to a childhood experiencing that racing excitement. So, if you wouldn't mind, John, tell us what caused you to get into auto racing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to watch more episodes of your shows and what you guys have accomplished. And I was telling Renard in the green room before we started today that what you see today is a little boy that was for most of his life on the other side of the fence, watching the racing because my grandfather raced back in the 40s and 50s. My father raced 60s, 70s, and 80s when he got out of the U.S. Navy. My grandfather was also in the Navy. And so I was baptized in motor oil, I guess you could say. And so I've been around it all my life. It was a family passion, through those generations. And then we went racing as a family, my mom and my dad and my sister and I. And then you have dreams in life, and I really, really wanted to be in motorsport somehow as a career, and met the right people at the right time. Got to go to work for Mazda for 19 years, and built and developed and grew the racing program there. And lo and behold, we were racing in IMSA, which is a league. It's a sanctioning body, and for all the years I raced in IMSA, which is owned by the France family that owns NASCAR, I got to know Jim France, Lisa France Kennedy, Ben Kennedy, and they asked me to come serve essentially as the commissioner of the league. And so, like I say, you're right. It starts with something that is passionate from the very beginning, and that was it. And I have gotten to live an incredible boyhood dream a couple times over. First with Mazda, then with the series, and I can't tell you how excited I am to get up every day and go to work.
That is the dream, isn't it, for everybody? And you're such a great example of somebody who's living that dream. Now, you come from such a long line of racers. Did you always believe you're going to be in auto racing, or was this just it doesn't sound like it was an accident at all.
That's a great question. Always I think hoped for it, but I didn't know that I could actually make a career out of it. And that's been so fulfilling. And one of the things I've tried to do over the years is give back to the sport that's given me so much. So we've done some really unique driver development programs. We have a STEM education program now that we, in market where the races are. We bring high school kids and college kids to the track and tie in the racing side to what they're learning in the classroom. Just some really unique things. So I was dreaming of it, and those dreams became reality because I met so many amazing people that gave me opportunities to have a career.
It's amazing. So how do you, because I mean, there's a lot of different stakeholders, there's the audience, there's the students that you're helping learn about this auto racing sport, there's the business side of things. Do you have a common philosophy on how you look at all of these different stakeholders, or do you have different philosophies when you think about these different stakeholders in your racing universe?
First of all, kudos. That's an amazing question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that, but you have it pegged. So we're very fortunate at IMSA that we have 18 auto manufacturers that race with us. So we ultimately are providing the stage for them to go racing, to showcase their engine technologies, to showcase their vehicle platforms. A company like Michelin is here to test tires in this incredibly extreme environment. And so that group, the endemic automakers, the Michelins, the VP Racing Fuels, Motul Oil, they're using it as a laboratory in a lot of ways, and also as a marketing tool. Then you have individual race teams that own the cars and the teams and the equipment to go racing, and a lot of them operate the programs for the manufacturers. You have a fan base that you want to produce, entertaining shows for, and to your point, Amir, being an F1 fan is awesome. I love that you are, and we have a lot of carryover. And so, the whole industry of motorsport has been lifted, I think, for a lot of reasons. One, obviously Drive to Survive has been a great tool. I think the ability for any of us to go racing on a simulator that is so realistic these days. But then, at the event, the experience we give our fans, either at the track when they come as a fan or when they watch an NBC broadcast, that's critical. So I think I try my hardest with my staff to look at each of the stakeholders in aggregate as a whole, but at the same time they all have different needs, right? We just are on this super awesome growth path with audience right now. We just crossed over 3 million followers in social, over a million subscribers on YouTube. Our television numbers year over year are up 70% on linear. And out of that, actually, the 18 to 34 audience is up 11%. So for me, like, that gives us hope that there's a future of a next generation fan. So, but you're right. You got to think of all those parties, and, a lot of people say, like, you're not going to keep everybody happy all the time. They're right. But we do our ever best, and we're on a really special momentum trend right now.
No, that's great to hear, and like you said, some of the shows that have motorsports on it, I became an F1 fan because of the show on Netflix, etcetera. I just literally, before we got on here, I played, the NASCAR video game, etcetera, so you understand how that's a way of easily getting more people to gravitate to it. What do you think in far as being international? Are you getting more international fans to motorsports, people that are in other countries? Are you able to get those very easily now?
Yeah, one of the things that's special is IMSA is the league, if you will, here in North America, and we have a sister league called the ACO that's in Europe, and we collaborate with them. So the regulations of the vehicle platforms are right identical. So that's helped. But I love that question, Renard, because we took a little bit of a flyer on YouTube as a live broadcast platform. So NBC, USA, Peacock is what you were able to watch IMSA races on in 2025. But in the beginning of 24, we took a bit of a flyer and we tried, geo blocked in the US YouTube, and instantly on the very first try there was 500,000 people watching, and for us that was a big step. And so you hit the nail on the head, and with 18 manufacturers, and the domestic ones are Chevrolet with the Corvette, Cadillac, Ford with the Mustang. Currently we don't have the Stellantis or Dodge in there. We get Ferrari, but all the other brands are international brands. So we like to joke we're the biggest international series in North America. And that audience is really attached because they're, the German brands have their following in Munich with BMW, and Stuttgart with Porsche, and Mercedes AMG. So and go around the world. You got that with Acura Honda, you got that with Lexus Toyota in Asia. So It's really, really been a big lift for the sport, and we've never had a moment like this in the history of sports car racing.
No, that's perfect. I want to go a little bit back. You know, you're talking about this is a family tradition, you know, through that. What was that time where you knew that you were gonna be the next person up with being in motorsports? You know, you were a fan, like you say, you were on the other side of the fence for a while. But what was that time? I would love to hear when you did that transition and all of a sudden you're on the other side of the fence, if that makes it.
Well, I think from a an event operations standpoint, I was working in timing and scoring when I was 9 years old, and in those days there were no transponders that kept track of the cars. It was you wrote down on a piece of paper the car numbers as they went by, and you handed it to someone, and you started the next lap. So it was old fashioned, and so I got to know the drivers, I got to know the cars. And before there was anything like a podcast, when I was a kid, I had my own radio show that I did in my bedroom. No one else heard me except myself. I had an old cassette tape player, and I would give a weekend recap based on the race results. You know, Amir finished first, and Renard finished first in his class, and John was a lap down, and like I just read it off, and you know, I thought for sure, like, you know, I'm gonna be in this sport, and just over time, and I think you guys can relate. There's been people that you met at the right time, at the right place, that gave you an opportunity, that opened a door for you, that gave you encouragement, that made it, you know, a recommendation or gave you advice, and that honestly is what happened. On the Mazda side, I went to a Mazda dealership with my dad when I was 9 years old, and it's the first year that the Mazda RX-7, the rotary engine car, came to the U.S. And here I am, this little 9-year-old boy sitting in the showroom, and right in the center of the showroom is one of these Mazda RX-7s. And I fell in love with the car, and suddenly, like, all I did was follow Mazda, and my mom says to this day, you know, all you talked about was working for Mazda and going to Japan when you're a little boy. So, you know, to be able to do that after all those years is just it gives me chills. Like you get blessed by those opportunities, and they don't always come along that way. And um, I just knew, and you know, I met the right people at the right time from Mazda, guys like Robert Davis, Jim O'Sullivan, then Masahiro Moro, who was my boss before I left. These gentlemen and many others opened doors for me, and I every chance I get, I text them and remind them there's no chance I would be where I'm at today without you guys. And I think that's something in life we have to remember. You know, my dad told me, he said, you know, never forget who came before you, right? Because they probably made some mistakes. They probably learned from those mistakes. They blazed the trail, and I wanna I wanna be that for the next generation. And again, I'm sure you guys can relate in business as well.
Yeah, 100% agree. You know, you know there's people in your journey that you know, excite you, that get you on a different path. You know, me and Amir have talked many times, especially when it comes to tech. When we started, we didn't know we wanted to lead. We didn't know we wanted to be executives. It's we saw someone else do the great work and made that decision. And it sounds like that's what you're doing now. You saw other great leaders in that sport and said, "Hey, that's something I want to do. I want to do what they do." And now you're at the point now where you're the president and you're seeing other people who are looking up to you as well. So that's very great. I would love to know, just speaking on that, now that you're, you know, you've been the president for 6 years, going on 7 years now, what are you looking for as that next generation that's coming behind you? Are you already talking to people who are looking to become president at some point in time? What's your thought process on the next person up?
Yeah, another awesome question. You guys run a national syndicated show, guys. You're great at this.
Thank you.
First of all, I have a incredible staff of people that dedicate themselves to this lifestyle. all occupations are different, right? There's, thank the Lord, there's first responders that choose to dedicate their lives to that. People that work in emergency rooms or medicine, like that, those folks are doing like proper work. But motorsports, just to put it in a little bit of a nutshell, it's a lifestyle. We're on the road a ton. When I was at Mazda, I was doing 40 weekends a year away from my family. It's tough. It's really tough. But you dedicate yourself to your passion, and you choose that lifestyle. And I've got a group of young talent that has done the same. I also have a bunch of veterans, and to your point, Renard, I looked up to a lot of folks over time. Saw the things out of their repertoire that I wanted to kind of bring into mine, and vice versa. And I think once again, like I have a lot of hope about the future because of the energy that I see out of the young people that are choosing this lifestyle, the sport, sports marketing in general. It doesn't just have to be auto racing, but it gives me a lot of hope that there's an energetic next generation that really wants to carry this forward. And things like a STEM program with high school kids and college kids are my way of trying to identify some talent. And they get to do so many unique things. Like when you watch a race, Amir, and I know you can relate, you watch a F1 race, Renard, on Sunday, you see the mechanics because that happens during pit stops. You see the onboard camera, you see the driver. You may go to the pit stand where the engineers are, on the laptops, on the radio, you hear their radio voice. Behind all that, behind the folks that are on the spotlight, and it may just apply to a stick and ball sport, the players on the field, the mechanics, the engineers, and the drivers in the case of racing, the spotlight's on them. But behind them is an incredible group of individuals that have designed the car that you never see, designed the engine, made the tires. They serve the hospitality that feeds the team, that gives them energy to go racing. There's a trainer that trains all those mechanics to be physically fit, to be on their A game for every one of those pit stops. The drivers have mechanics, or trainers that get them as physically fit as they are. So I think, the critical part here is that there's so many people and so many careers that you could do in this sport that you may not see and not even imagine. PR professionals, that write the press releases, that write the marketing proposals, that get the corporate partners. It's a very big scoop of different talents that end up in the sport.
John, it's very interesting for me to hear you say the word lifestyle, and I'll tell you why. As a fan, right, I look at all of those people out there, and thank you for highlighting the hospitality folks and the people making the tires, because absolutely, as a fan, I wouldn't have even thought about that. But I see the engineers, I see the driver, I see how fit they need to be to carry those G forces and so on. But when I see those people doing all of those different jobs, I don't see it as a lifestyle. I actually see it as people living their purpose. If
Yeah.
you're in
Yeah.
kindergarten on a playground, you're not saying, I want to be an IT tech someday. Like, whoever says that, you
I
know,
haven't heard that one.
exactly. Like I'm saying, I want to be astronaut or a race car driver or doctor, whatever. Like, those are the kinds of things children dream about. So for me as a fan, I see you leading an organization of people who are living their purpose, and that to me is a very powerful place to be, because you're not just bringing that joy for a few hours or a 24-hour race. You're actually bringing together the science, the engineering, the technology teams behind it, the material science folks, the catering and all that. Like, all of these different jobs are coming together to help put together not just a big show, but also for these drivers and these people to live their purpose. And I think it takes a community to do that. But on that note, I know the drivers get the most shine at the end of the day, right? It's all about the podium. It's all about, the champagne bottle that's being uncorked at the end of the race. So as a leader, as you think about all of these different folks, how do you teach resilience to your teams? Because not everybody gets to land on the podium. Not everybody gets that shine. So how do you, as a leader, coach, some of your special people?
Yeah, again, amazing question, and over the course of time, I'll go back to Mazda for a second. Mazda is an amazing brand, and the home of Mazda is in Hiroshima, Japan. And Hiroshima, of course, has been through a lot. Okay, since the 1940s, and there's a Hiroshima spirit, meaning they never give up. Like that's the mantra. Never stop challenging. Never give up no matter what you face. And resilience in our sport. This sport can be, one of my best friends says, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And you got to maintain the resilience through all that. And Mazda, my time at Mazda, we proved that. We were battling. We had a lot of adversity with reliability and some technology and things like that. But we just kept clawing. We kept scratching. We kept finding new partners. That were living their purpose, to use your words, on developing the newest engine, the more reliable components that were going to finally get us to success, to get us to victory lane, to tell the brand story of not quitting and finally achieving. And so I think one of the best pieces of advice I got over time was, look, you got to make mistakes. Bad things are going to happen. The key is, what have you learned from it? How have you applied it to make sure it doesn't happen again? And back to the point of who came before you, there's a bunch of people that are going to make mistakes, and I want to share with the up and coming generation that here's what I learned from it. Take it for what it's worth. But in the end, my hope is that no matter what people are battling, no matter what industry they're in, they're putting people around them that are sharp and can help them through whatever faces them from an adversity standpoint. But I'll use Michelin as an example. Like they're out developing tires, and through that R&D process, and you guys can relate to it, I'm sure, in the tech side. There's things that are tried every day in a research lab that don't work, right? They end up on the side or on the shelf or on the cutting room floor. And Michelin, that's a perfect example of a brand. They're focused on a better tomorrow, a better way forward. And they're developing the next generation of road car tire in this incredibly um, difficult endurance, heat, all night, rain, all these conditions. And so they have to have a sense of resilience that like none other, because they're going to learn things in testing and in laboratory work, and then when it does work, you guys know that feeling. It's like, wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like magic.
Yeah.
No, I would have to say I'm very curious, and we're talking about the back end stuff, but I wanna segue back into motorsports a little bit. There's a race that happens that's 24 hours. I hate to say I can't think of the name at the moment, but I would love to know what entails for that, because that's a 24-hour race. You're talking about people watching this, people on staff, 24 hours a day making sure this race runs. If you could tell us about that race and what all that entails.
Yeah, it's Renard, it's incredible. First of all, on the high level, it's the ultimate test of human and machine. Okay. In France, there's a race called the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and very similar to that, our first race of the season, our Super Bowl, is the Rolex 24 at Daytona. The word Rolex is the winning drivers get a Rolex Daytona watch. It's the only way to get one that's engraved. You earn it by winning that race. They present them a Rolex watch at the end, but it is the ultimate test. So the cars are put to the ultimate test, the engines, the tires, and then the humans. I think you know, man, I think about first responders, people that have to be on their A game all night long. That's what happens. So, and in that 24-hour race, the teams, the crew that actually operate the car, they probably show up at 8 a.m. They final preparations on the car, all the pre-race, pomp and circumstance and excitement and driver introductions. The crew now, by the time the race is started, let's say it's a green flag at 1 p.m. They've been at the track for 5 hours. The race hasn't even started yet. They probably were up at 6 at the hotel having breakfast as a team. So let's just say they've been there for 5 hours. Then the race starts. Well, in our form of racing, it's about every hour that the car comes in for fuel, for tires, and possibly a driver change, because we have multiple drivers in that 24-hour period. But every hour for 24 hours, that happens. So back to the first responders, back to those crew have to be on their A game that entire time. So 5 hours before the race started, they run for 24. So now they've been up for 29 hours. And at the final couple hours, now it's game on. You've been driving all night. Now it's best driver in the car, best they can in terms of lap time, and they're battling after all this time for the victory. And then, of course, hopefully you win, and then you probably have 6 hours of teardown. So our crews and our teams and our drivers, all the personnel, by the time they're done and they go to bed on Sunday night, they've probably been up for 42 hours straight with no sleep. So it's intense. It's a really special form of the sport. The drivers actually never really talk to each other that whole time. Meaning, if the three of us were on a team together, if Amir starts the race, I'm probably sitting in the box with the headset listening to his comments about the car, the conditions of the track, and you're probably taking a nap, maybe having a quick meal, getting a massage, getting prepped by the physio. Amir gets out, he leaves, he goes to get refreshed and cleaned up. I'm in the car, and then you come and you sit and you prepare. Like for 24 hours, we never really talk to one another. We sort of do it through the radio, but that's about it.
Man, that is grueling, but I also can see how whomever wins, how excited they will be because all that hard work they're doing goes into that 24 hours. It's not just, of course, like Amir said earlier, you see the person who drive, that's the person that everyone sees, but it's really a team championship who put everything together in order to make that happen. And just talking around the motorsport and the vehicle itself, we know about electric vehicles, EVs. How is that playing a part of the motorsports going forward with EVs?
It's a great question. For endurance racing, it's a bit tough to have an EV that goes all night for that period of time. However, we want to be the heartbeat of the auto industry in what we do. So back in towards the end of when I was in Mazda, 2018, 2019, we were already working on, as an industry, the integration of hybrid technology into these endurance racing cars. So in 2023, we announced hybrid systems in the top category cars. It's an electric motor. It's made by Bosch. It's in a case made by a company called X-Track out of the UK. And the battery is made by a company called Fortescue Zero. And that system is so relevant to probably the hottest element of technology in the auto industry these days, and that's hybrid. The cars essentially plug in, they're fully charged. It has saved about 10% when it comes to fuel, so it's extended the range about 10% on the how far the car can go. We run an 80% renewable fuel, fully sustainable fuel. Hoping to get to 100 here soon. Not necessarily the easiest thing, but we're getting there. But EV has its place. We certainly could run a sprint series in EV, maybe a 30 to 40-minute type race. But for endurance racing, this hybrid system has really been the sweet spot. And it's so cool. I don't know if you guys have hybrid vehicles, but the cars come in for a pit stop and they leave under electric power, which is great. And there's so much power, they do a full burnout with electric. And then halfway down the pit lane, bam, the engine fires up, and you've got a V8 Cadillac, you've got a V6 Acura, you got a V8 Porsche, a V8 BMW. So like it's like fireworks at 4th of July going off. It's bam, the engines fire up. So really slick, and that's been our way to be responsible, I think, environmentally responsible, cool, and show high performance all at the same time.
So I'll add in there, I have an EV. I have a hybrid, sorry. If I have a Tundra, that's a hybrid. And yeah, when it's just selling, you can hear that it switches, but then you hear that engine pop back on when you move. It's a different thing. When Toyota decided to get away from far as, having a V8 and went to more of a hybrid, it still functions. I know some people debate about it, but I love my truck. I love the hybrid. I definitely understand where you're coming from. I'm kind of curious, where do you see far as the vehicle itself going in the next maybe 5 or 10 years? Do you think it's going to stay hybrid, or will we switch back to maybe a V8, V10, maybe?
Well, we've got some sweet sounding V10, V12s running with Aston Martin and Lamborghini and some others. But I think for sure there's multiple options for mobility, right? There's definitely an EV option for maybe urban and short run settings, but it's getting better. We've seen the long distance trucks now. Hybrid, I think, based on the feedback from the automaker, which is what we're really driven by, is what's most relevant. That hybrid is the sweet spot. I think the area that, and I sort of touched on it, the area that I think we see the best opportunity would be in future fuels, biofuels, e-fuels, more sustainable raw materials making the fuel. That's been a big part for us, and it's actually been a huge part for Michelin on the tire side. The tire that they're bringing to the racetrack for our race cars is over 53% renewable raw materials. So think of the next, plastic water bottle you grab out of the cooler at the gym, or styrofoam or wood chips. They're using those types of raw materials to make race tires. I couldn't have imagined it, but it's things like that sometimes racing appears to be, like we're out there burning tires and burning fuel, and how can that be anything but, a waste? Well, it actually, in our case, is a showcase of what's possible, to still remain responsible and put on a great show. So that's what we're going to keep trying to do.
And that is what I love about auto racing. I mean, people, unless you know the technical details and what's going on, it's hard to appreciate, to your point as well. My wife, she didn't know why I love cars so much until I bought her tracked or lap time on 5 different, exotics. And then she's like, "Okay, now I get it.
Now I get it.
Now I get it."
Yeah, yeah.
But coming to the sustainability point, I know that there's a lot of different fuels. Is your league, your IMSA league, looking at the Porsche synthetic fuel that Formula One is talking about as well?
So our top championship is called the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, and we currently work with our fuel partner VP Racing Fuels to develop and blend. They're in San Antonio. Porsche is a big partner of the series. They compete at the entry level in the Porsche Carrera Cup, in GT racing, and in GTP. So we have kept our eye on that, Amir, and I think as things develop over time, the automakers have invested, some of them in battery plants, and some of them, to your point, like Porsche, in production of a bio or an e-fuel. That for us, I think 100% is going to continue to be the next sort of breakthrough, cutting edge. And I'm so fortunate that we have a partnership with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the U.S. Department of Energy to continue to, I think, understand from their standpoint what will be or what's in the pipeline, no pun intended, to be at the pump. When the three of us go, to fuel up, there's regular, there's premium, there's super premium, but what might be next? What unique fuel could be the next generation that's the most sustainable, renewable materials that goes back into the environment, doesn't do damage to the environment, things like that. And we're wanting to be the platform to demonstrate that there are those things out there, and you can still go over 200 miles an hour while you're using it, and that type of thing. So I like to just say we want to have our finger on the pulse of the auto industry and make sure that the things that we're doing from a rules standpoint, or the next generation car, is going to tell the story of where the auto industry is headed as well.
That's amazing. So I want to come to John, the race car driver, because I think there's a story there that I might be able to unearth. So I'm gonna try.
Okay.
What is the one racetrack that you always love going back to because it teaches you something new?
Well, I have to be careful because now I'm responsible for Sebring International Raceway and Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, because we own those two tracks. Um, there's a track in Wisconsin. If you haven't been, I pray that you can go. It's called Road America. It's 4 miles long. It's my happy place on earth. And when I grew up, I saw that track as kind of like the Boston Garden or Madison Square Garden, or, for me, being a Chicagoan, Wrigley Field, or it was like hallowed ground for me when I was a little boy. And, the track is long, but it's got hugely technical corners. It's a really special place. Domestically, that's it. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Le Mans, which is still to this day run on public roads. They close them for the race. Place like Spa in Belgium, like these tracks, they're so unique, each of them in their own way, that as you approach a corner, and on the way home tonight, we're all going to be driving down the freeway, and we're going to come to that off ramp, right? And all of us are like, all right, like I'm gonna get in there. And that, when you go to these racetracks, the drivers, the men and women that hustle these race cars around, are attacking these corners in the same way we do, with, we got to obey the speed limit. But that there's so much that goes into that. And you can learn so much in racing that makes you a safer driver on the road. I tell you this, looking further ahead. Most of us are looking right here, right in front of our nose, right? Looking further down the road, predicting what might happen. Accident avoidance. There's a old story that, if a car is spinning, you actually probably want to aim for it, most likely, because if it's sliding, it's probably not going to be where you're at. And each situation's different. So I just use that as an example. But the all of our kids went to some sort of a driving academy to learn those types of techniques. And so for me, it's Road America in Wisconsin. That's my happy place.
Is that a track where you take the RX-7 on?
I would do that in a heartbeat. Yeah, I love that place, and I hope when my career's sort of wrapping up, I can do some vintage historic racing, which is another. We have a company we own called HSR, Historic Sports Car Racing. Even this afternoon, my wife said, you ought to plan on doing that when you're done. I was like, is that official green light? Like I'm okay. So, um, but yeah, I'd love to do that more often, Amir. And you guys got to come to a race sometime. I'd love that.
I would definitely love to do that as well. I'm now curious. How do you see your legacy at IMSA? What do you want people to remember you as? Because I mean, you've been there 6 years, 7 years now. How do you see that playing out for you?
Incredible question. And I will just for a second roll back to Mazda. There was a gentleman that started the Mazda Motorsports program that I got the opportunity to lead, and his name was Damon Barnett. And he set a culture of family. So if all three of us raced Mazdas, we went out on track and we, of course, tried to win. We raced against each other. But when we came off track, if your car broke, Amir, Renard and I would be in there trying to help you, giving you parts and that type of thing. In the same manner, when I got to IMSA and I watched this man from when I was a little kid, and his name was John Bishop, and he started IMSA with the Bill France Sr. And he created a culture. He created a culture of people to, be able to go racing with whatever means they had. Maybe it wasn't the top level, but there was a place for them. He created a platform for manufacturers to go racing. My hope in my decisions that I'm making, I made a promise to Jim France and to Mitch Bishop, John Bishop's son, when I started on my very first day. I said, it is my hope to operate this entity, this league, in the same set of, founding values that your parents did. And it's my hope, and I spend time making decisions like you guys do every day. Boy, what would John Bishop do? And I think as I, try to contribute for the rest of my career and I depart, my hope is that number one, I left it in a better place than I found it. We grew it and we polished it and we made it even shinier than it was. And that maybe the next generation that's in my seat or in a leadership role may stop and think, boy, like what would John do in this situation? That's from the heart, guys. Like that's what I hope. I don't want any accolades except that the sport grew in the time that I was responsible for it. And we're very fortunate right now that this is a moment for endurance sports car racing that we've never seen. And I hope, I keep saying we're going to keep working at it and not screw it up. So that's my daily thing is I'm going to try not to screw it up.
No, I think that's great. I wanted to ask around technology. AI is big everywhere. How is AI being adapted in the motorsports area?
Awesome question. I'm telling you, you guys need to go national with this show on a big network. I think first of all, the cars that we have, and Amir, you mentioned F1, and we're so fortunate. Kevin Magnussen is driving in IMSA. Logan Sargent is driving in IMSA. Felipe Nasser. These guys all, had their time in F1. Um, the bottom line is that the GTP cars we have are the most technologically advanced race cars in North America, if not the world. And in a lot of ways, they're the spine of the car is like an F1 car. It does have a roof on it. It's got bigger body work, but in the end, with hybrid technology, probably close to 200 sensors that are logging data real time. And I know that's right up you guys' alley. Um, you know, tire pressure monitoring, ride height sensors, wheel speed sensors, you name it. So technology is absolutely key for us. We're logging all this data real time to make decisions about the future of the balance of performance. We're logging data for timing and scoring. All of our television footage it's all real time. For AI, there's a couple of areas which I think could be incredibly and already are being incredibly beneficial to us. One is that balance of performance. So you have 18 manufacturers. How in the world do you create a level playing field with, and I'll use the GT cars, a front engine Mercedes AMG with no turbo, a mid engine Porsche with a turbo, a rear engine Corvette, a rear engine Ferrari, a front engine Lexus. There's such variety. There's a sleek Ferrari 296. And then the Lexus, the RCF that runs with us, is a bit bigger car, a sedan, if you will. How in the world? And I think AI can take elements like vehicle weight, power, aerodynamic capabilities of these cars and help us as a league make sure that it's a very level playing field. The other thing I think it's incredible when there's a lot of strategy that goes on in our races because of the length of the race. And, as an engineer or a strategist, you would kind of run the race backwards. So you would, kind of roll yourself back of where you want to be at a certain point with tires and fuel. I think predictive analysis would be and is an incredible tool. Our teams are using a lot of simulation. So they set up the chassis in the engineering, office before they even leave for the track. And they've done a lot of simulation work that they can probably predict their lap times depending on the conditions, if it's raining or if it's dry or if it's hot or if it's cold, but also most likely how they fit in with the other competitors. And so those elements are already here, and they're gonna continue to be more and more a part of what we do. And it's funny, we've tried to focus on saving costs for the competitors, and the one thing that they say, please don't ever, stop us from being able to drive on the simulator, because they learn so much there, and they can do all that testing without having to travel and buy tires and all that stuff. So
Oh, that's great to know. I want to go back because you did mention about how many F1 racers in general switch between F1 motorsports, Indy, etc. How have you seen that transition for them? Is for them, is it a pretty easy transition? Or I don't want to think from a back end saying people just say, well, a car is a car. I don't think that's true by any means. Learning from what I've seen from F1, etc., everything's different. But how have you seen that transition from someone who says they've been in F1 and their transition to Indy, etc.?
well, let's roll the clock just a minute. AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, Dan Gurney, Richard Petty. Um, these guys were known as the best of the best. And they, whether it was an Indy car, a stock car, a Formula One car, or a sports car, they were likely at the sharp end, right? They were at the sharp end of the standings. What's beautiful is that continues to this day. So, Scott Dixon, incredible IndyCar champion, a really good guy, great friend, great. Alex Palou, I mentioned, Magnuson, Logan Sargent, Nasser. These guys have been the best in their trade. Tony Stewart's done the Rolex 24. Dale Earnhardt did the Rolex 24 with Dale Jr. These men and women who best of the best in their particular discipline come over to sports car racing because, back to your point, Renard, it's a grueling event, and they want to have that on their resume. But the preparation that they do is the same. It's obviously a different platform, maybe a more complicated car, but the mindset, the training, the way they drive the car, those types of things, there's a lot of similarities. And one of the cool elements I had when I was at Mazda, we had a driver development program, and there was a lot of young kids from karting to open wheel that when you put them in a sports car, the precision of which they drive an open wheel car helps them so much in a sports car because they're very precise in their movements. When you watch a race, like sliding the car isn't their goal. Okay. It's not, and I love the movies. It's not Fast and Furious, right? It's when the drivers are in those cars, their feet on the pedals are like a ballerina, okay, or a ballet dancer. Their hand motions are not flailing around in the cockpit. They are very precise movements. You watch their eyes and the way they look. So those same skills absolutely carry over, and anybody at the top of their game, I think, can come over here and do well. But at the same time, endurance sports car racing is not for the faint of heart. It's sometimes the drivers are in the car for 3-4 hours at a time. And, to your point, Amir, the G forces of a fighter pilot for that long, that's hard on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I couldn't do it. I'm not this age.
Yeah, I know I can't either. I watch them; they make it look easy.
They definitely do. And John, it has been great having you on the podcast. I think I've learned more about motorsports today than I ever have. And now I'm already watching F1, but I think I'll be watching even more motorsports. My wife is gonna hate it, but I'm gonna have to watch it after hearing everything that I know now. But we ask this question of everybody who's on the podcast. We always ask, what's your theme music? And we would love to know what's your theme music to get you ready for the day. You're around motorsports all day, so I would love to know what's your theme music.
That's an awesome question. So I'll date myself, and people make fun of me a little bit because my wife does. So Neil Diamond, "Forever in Blue Jeans," is something I would carry on. Because I travel a lot, not because probably the real theme of the song, but I've always imagined like Elton John's Rocket Man is because I'm always on the road. But in the end, there's a song, "Leader of the Band," and that's one that I would say has been my hope, is just to be a really good leader and to contribute to helping the next generation, helping them learn discipline and how we continue to evolve the sport. So let's go with leader of the band today. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity, guys. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and come to a race, first of all, and any of your listeners, I hope they will, and go to IMSA.com for more information.
Man, that's the way to leave it. I was just gonna say, me and Amir, we're gonna have to fly pretty soon and go to some motorsports, definitely 100%. And again, we thank you so much for being on the podcast. I know that our listeners are gonna take a lot from this. If I will tell our listeners, if you're not a fan of motorsports, you will be after listening to this episode, definitely. So to our Black Belts and Boardrooms audience, we will see you on the next one.